Warm, dry, and windy weather is keeping firefighters busy this week, as you have seen. Thanks for joining us tonight, everyone. I'm Phil Lipoff.
I'm Kim Christensen. A fire near Golden Gate Canyon State Park led to pre-evacuation notices in Jefferson and Gilpin counties today. Emergency officials say a house fire spread to brush and trees on Ralston Creek Road. Those pre-evacs were later lifted. Another fire broke out in Fort Lupton. It burned through some grass and outhouses. Fortunately, no injuries reported in either fire. But more elevated fire danger is in the forecast tomorrow, and that's why we begin with 9 News Chief Meteorologist Kathy Sabin. Can't get a break.
We cannot. You know, it's a different day, but it's the same weather pattern. Tonight is a calm evening in Denver. Today was, believe it or not, our break from the really bad wind, and it wasn't a calm day by any stretch. The snow has come to an end in the mountains as our recent storm is tracking off to the east, but a return of windy, warm weather tomorrow. Now, the good news, this most recent storm dropped 6 to 8 inches of snow in the mountains, your favorite resorts, picking up almost a foot of fresh snow on top of the 1 to 3 feet we saw last week. The winds are not a big issue tonight, but will be ramping up tomorrow, as will the temperatures. We're still pretty comfortable for February at 47 degrees in 9 News, the studio area in downtown Denver. But tomorrow, as temperatures soar into record territory and the winds increase, we go back under a fire weather warning. So we all need to pay attention, be vigilant, and just, be careful. We know the drill. We've been doing this for weeks and months, and tomorrow will be another one of those days. A mild overnight, calm winds. Tomorrow, we get back to sunshine and almost 70 degrees, but some changes in the extended forecast. I've got rain for Denver and maybe a rain-snow mix. We're going to talk about it coming up.
Kathy, thank you. And now that big fire in Thornton is over, business owners who suffered damage are trying to move forward. 9 News reporter Shalima Maharaj joins us from Thornton after catching up with one of them tonight. Shalima?
Yeah, there's no flames visible, but what does remain is that acrid stench of smoke in the air. Now, Harmony Domes, they are a modular home builder, and they moved into their current building about a year ago. What they saw yesterday is beyond anything they have experienced before.
Now it's kind of terrifying thinking back to it.
The charred frame of this glamping dome is a reminder.
We got our permits a couple weeks ago. We started building it, and now we have to rebuild it.
Vasyl Kostyuk was sitting in his office Wednesday when one of his employees came over.
One of our employees commented and said there is a lot of smoke. We look out at the windows and see some grass fire and take our hoses and says, yeah, let's go try to handle that.
There was no time to douse anything here in the back of his business, Harmony Domes.
Usually the dome like that, price it out, just the model without the trailer, really around $70,000.
This year is obviously a very dry year. It's even comparable to the Marshall year.
High winds and a lack of relative humidity have made conditions more challenging for fire crews.
But even some of the small things like digging a hole in a field or something of that nature, a shovel can hit a rock and create a spark.
While the cause of this fire remains under investigation, North Metro Fire Battalion Chief John Cook is urging people to take steps to mitigate the risks.
We ask people to keep combustibles at least 5 feet away from their house.
Fire officials credited Parks and Rec with keeping vegetation under control.
Anytime you have shorter fuels, that cuts down on the flame lengths. It's going to cut down on the heat.
For Vasyl Kostyuk, well, this loss is difficult.
That's just the structure. Nobody get hurt, and that's what is matter.
Now, Vasyl tells me that he has filed a claim with his insurance company. He doesn't know if he's going to be covered for the damages. In the meantime, he does say he's extremely grateful for the efforts of firefighters who got to the scene very quickly. Says it truly could have been so much worse. Reporting in Thornton, Shalima Maharaj, 9 News.
As the Thornton Fire Department works to determine what caused that fire, a man is assessing the damage to his small business. The owner of Roll Race Motorsports says it severely burned 150 vehicles in his lot. Jason Roll says some were used for parts, but many were dream cars being restored to their former glory. He is now bracing for the dozens of calls he's going to have to make to his clients.
A lot of these cars are like people's dream cars that they were trying to bring back to life, and we use everything out here for little pieces and parts that are just irreplaceable. You can't just go get this stuff, and everything's gone.
Roll told us May the vehicles were older model BMWs and other vintage cars.
A man will soon learn his punishment for his involvement in an organized burglary ring that targeted primarily, Asian business owners around the Denver metro area. A jury in Arapahoe County just convicted 45-year-old Freddie Giovanni Castro Garzon on a number of felonies. He was one of several people arrested in what investigators are calling a highly sophisticated scheme. Investigators say they set up surveillance at businesses, followed the owner's home, then targeted those houses, stealing cash, expensive jewelry, and designer items. According to prosecutors, it started in late 2023 and continued into early 2025. Garzon will be sentenced later this year. He faces up to 72 years in prison. There are several cases against other suspects as well pending.
Denver is sending a message to ICE agents that they're not welcome here. The mayor signed an executive order today barring them from staging or gathering on city property, and that includes buildings, parks, even sidewalks. The Trump administration's Operation Metro Surge has sent thousands of federal officers into large cities. Mayor Mike Johnston says the executive order is a response to residents' questions about what would happen if it came here. His executive order also directs local law enforcement to detain any ICE officer observed using excessive force and remove that officer from the situation. 9 News legal analyst Scott Robinson says the order is largely symbolic.
It is very well written, very detailed, very far-reaching, and largely unenforceable. Federal agents have a right to enforce federal law, and to try and ban them from city property while letting other individuals of any sort of background on city property is really not legal.
This is not an original idea. Similar measures have been enacted in Seattle, Chicago, and LA. A school on DU's campus meant for gifted children will close next year.
Rick Center is not your typical school, but it is dealing with a lot of the same issues as others do. 9 News reporter Ria Jha joins us now with more on that. Ria.
Yeah, Rick's teaches students from preschool through 8th grade, and it's been since the mid-1980s. Today I spoke with an alum who's worried that there are increasingly fewer options for families.
To say that place was home for us, I think is actually like a vast understatement.
For a lot of students, this school was their childhood. At the Rick Center for Gifted Children, kids tested in at 3 years old.
All the way from preschool, early learning years, all the way through 8th grade. My brother went there as well.
After more than 40 years operating on DU's campus, graduating hundreds of students like Bailey Skaman and her brother, Rick's will close its doors in 2027.
To see like the actual reality of it closing is kind of hit me weird this morning.
In an email sent out to enrolled families, the dean of DU's College of Education said they made the decision after, quote, a careful consideration of our long-term mission, as well as operational and financial factors.
A place like that closing tells me that we're not necessarily prioritizing the children necessarily anymore.
After Rick's, Bailey pursued her passion for performing, completing high school online while working at professional regional theaters across Colorado.
Rick's then not only hones in on their education, but like performing was for me, also hones in on passions and interests. A lot of those things that I grew up with have carried me very far in life.
Enrollment at Rick's has dropped significantly in recent years, from 203 students in 2023 to 142 this school year. Bailey says options like Rick's are hard to come by for her son now.
His dad and I are kind of already having that struggle of like, how do we make sure he is challenged enough?
Statewide, there are only a few schools that serve gifted students from preschool through middle school in one dedicated program.
I can speak for myself that I'm concerned about where education is heading.
We did a lot of things that I don't think I necessarily would have experienced had I not been a part of Rick's.
DU says Rick's will continue operating through its final school year, 26 through 27, and is working to support families and staff through the transition. Ria Jha, 9 News.